Thanks for the opportunity to present at the OSCC 2020. Today I am going to share some of my thoughts about why virtual worlds in general are not finding similar levels of interest as video conferencing platforms during this COVID-19 crisis. What's holding 3D virtual worlds back, and what can we do about it? We are here exploring this issue together, so feel free to share your own thoughts or questions as they arise in chat. This talk is more like a stream of consciousness, and it has a somewhat loose structure, but I'm sure you will find the interconnections. I will spend some time on conferencing applications before segueing into 3D virtual worlds. So the first question I have is COVID-19 a showstopper or a catalyst? There is general consensus that COVID-19 has accelerated the digitization of human activities and related businesses. So while this pandemic is obviously bad, it has proved to be a catalyst for the adoption of collaborative technologies. This is obviously having a ripple effect through the economy, the office real estate market, the travel market, the nature of work, and so on and so forth. Who is the new David with a WebEx ancestry who turned into a Goliath within a year? 1 year ago, most did not know what the Zoom application was or what it offered. Now it's almost a verb or an adjective for a video conferencing session. One can ask, why is it that Zoom became the most popular conferencing application when there are so many competitors around? Why are so many people of all walks of life eager to embrace Zoom sessions? Yes, with Zoom comes Zoom fatigue, but this is not entirely bad. It is a signal that people want to use the application. We need to figure out whether this fatigue has more to do with sitting in front of a screen or whether it arises because of the pressure of knowing that one can be under scrutiny at any time. These issues are perhaps not trivial, but they are certainly fixable. If you look at the graph showing experience of interest to purchase a Zoom subscription over time, it's pretty amazing. It has a 90-degree upward trend as soon as the COVID-19 crisis started. I cannot recall any technology that had experienced this kind of adoption rate. I mean, 90 degrees is something. Is there anything we can learn here? What made Zoom click? Well, it seems that people like to use software that empowers them in obvious ways. It also seems that ease of use and scalability of the platform were critical supporting factors. This application is being used by the old and the young and for very diverse use cases. For example, elderly parents can keep in touch with their kids, people can join yoga, Zumba classes from home, and you can even see religious meetups or meditation sessions happening in Zoom sessions. Goes without saying that I'm not pointing to the most common use case, which involves remote work. So who is the clear winner among collaborative technologies? It is certainly video conferencing applications. We can ask ourselves, why is it that when forced into geographic separation, the first reflex is to reach out to a video conferencing application? Zoom recognized this and they started building an ecosystem of application around web conferencing applications, which turned out to be core rather than peripheral in collaborative work processes. So everyone now is doing it, really. Microsoft with Teams and Skype, Google Meet, etc. But for some reason, they are not so much under the limelight as Zoom. Okay. We can go into why this happened. Even those players were in this game much earlier, but that would be for a different talk. How is all that relevant to virtual worlds? Don't worry, I'm going to go there. So, what makes video conferencing great? I think it's emotional bandwidth. One obvious thing with video conferencing is that the emotional bandwidth of this channel is very high. Facial gestures, micro and otherwise, obviously makes communication very rich, both in context and in content. So it comes to little surprise that video conferencing is found to be a rather good replacement for restoring deeper and meaningful human connections. The question that now remains is whether this habit is going to hold on or whether it's going to go away as soon as the pandemic situation fizzles out. I think the chain habit will stay, not because it is more effective than face-to-face settings, but primarily because of savings that businesses can make, and they have experienced it firsthand. So why are virtual worlds not experiencing similar adoption rates? Let's try to identify together what are the strengths of virtual worlds when compared to a video conferencing sessions. It's not easy to find what those strengths are, but let's try. It has been argued that virtual worlds provide better opportunities for unanticipated, unplanned, unscripted encounters between different parties. In the real world, for example, if you go to a bookstore and you find yourself in a particular section of a bookstore and you meet someone, the potential for this unplanned encounter to serendipitously bear fruit is high. This is because the meeting location defines the context and illustrates some kind of shared common ground or context that can perhaps support meaningful exchanges between the parties involved. In a 3D world, in theory, we should be able to simulate similar encounters more easily. But there are so many other channels of communications, for example, body language, that are difficult to support at this time. There are companies who assume that increasing the fidelity of representations of avatars, for example, would help them, with these issues, but it turns out that it's not as straightforward as expected. In short, the argument has always been that we live in a 3D world, and therefore a virtual 3D world is bound to be a better alternative or as a technology to support interactions at a distance. I wish it were as simple as that. Turns out that it is not. Okay, the supremacy of 3D over 2D is often misplaced from multiple perspectives, and I could discuss more depending on what questions arise in this audience. So in short, it is hard to highlight strength of virtual worlds that would put it ahead in terms of an effective technology to connect people without hitting some technological constraint. Is that a bad news? I don't think so. I think it's a good news because there's a lot of work that remains to be done. But what can we do to make virtual worlds a place where people will come back to for work and play? There are many unexplored domains when it comes to 3D virtual world design. One of the advantages when you start working in unexplored domains is that in many cases, tactically, it's still possible for researchers with modest, bootstrapped financial resources to still work in the field. Fundamental problems that need to be addressed typically require more pen and paper activities and less exorbitant bleeding-edge hardware. So in a way, I believe that unexplored domains kind of level the field. So let's have a look at examples of such domains. Okay, one of them is there are ample opportunities to study the pain points or the challenges that teachers or subject matter experts face when trying to make effective use of 3D virtual worlds for learning purposes. So you can try to identify them and then design your offering, that is your 3D world technology, around them. There is an obvious need to reduce the ratio of virtual environment content creation time to subject matter content creation time. In short, you want your users to spend more time creating quality subject matter content rather than the virtual world that holds that material. How are we on our end accelerating the creation of content in general, both in amount and quality? Our philosophy is simple. Split the world into parts thoughtfully so that you can assemble those parts in order to yield new content. So reusability and sharing of products so that they can be evolved is key in our view. The ability to import and manipulate text and image data in virtual worlds need to be offered as a core standard functionality. User content generation, either from scratch or from creative assemblies of existing parts, will remain king. So we are trying to support that. These little parts can help users create small exhibits which themselves can be assembled into museums or classrooms or large campuses and so on. Such a simple strategy can help to allow teachers to create environments that they need quickly and painlessly. We also have another strategy to increase adoption of virtual worlds. We try to encourage the design of minimal user interfaces and create systems that provide the optimal amount of freedom. Yes, too much freedom is bad. One could achieve this by automating the more time-consuming tasks in virtual environments. Example, navigation, camera control. All these are time-consuming tasks, and if we can find a way to make these simpler and faster, we will do it. What do we see as future possibilities? For shared environments that require long hours sitting at a desk, in the near term, working with wearables will probably remain, working without wearables will probably remain the norm. Users will prefer to have many of their 3D virtual tasks automated, so we will continue to expect point-and-click operations on 2D surfaces for pretty much at least the next few years. We will also see new ways for self-representations beyond avatars with limited expressivity. And this, of course, certainly doesn't mean that we should shoot for higher fidelity avatars. There are many other things that we can try that to represent a user or their activities. And the next point I wanted to talk about is about the need for hybridizing approaches, for mixing approaches. Because I believe that the future will be more about hybridizations of various approaches because each have particular strengths that we want to leverage. So I think we could see in the near future a mix of video conferencing and 3D world applications where the natural affordances of both are blended and made available to the user. This is just one example of a hybridization. We already see, as another example of hybridization, the injection of real-world environments into virtual worlds. At the simple level, we see the creation of simple 3D panoramas from pictures obtained from Google. We do that. But at the deeper, more advanced levels, we will see more intelligent photogrammetric approaches and so on. So the field is wide open there. The next point that I think will be of interest is what will be the state of the art for information representation in 3D worlds. I think we'll be seeing fundamental changes at the level of how we represent information in 3D spaces. Over the centuries, we have been good at compressing complex data through both syntactic and semantic compression methodologies. We have reduced, for example, a horse to a powerful line drawing on the wall of a cave. We have discovered the power of abstract representations that gives us insights in large numerical data sets or complex observable physical phenomena. We might need to reinvent presentation, brainstorming, project management tools, and so on in this medium. And perhaps, why not? Let's not hesitate to revisit and recombine all the range of approaches that have worked in the past and try to adapt them to this new 3D virtual medium. And I want to end with a main question, with an important question: should we rely on forced physical separation to highlight the importance of 3D virtual worlds? We cannot do that. We cannot rely on forced physical separation due to a pandemic, to argue for the utility of a 3D virtual world. It's time that we refine, amplify, and evolve the environment so that it becomes obvious to people why they should spend time there. We should start looking at virtual worlds less as an escape from reality and more as a catalyst for self and group empowerment. We are already implementing a number of products towards these goals. So please get in touch with me if you have the skills or resources to help us in this endeavor. We are always happy to collaborate. Thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, feel free to ask.